Hello, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us live tonight on Dr. Judy WTF. And with me is Christiana Davidson. She has been a therapist on staff of the Psychological Healing Center for many, many years, and she is an expert in mind mapping and taking people through the journey of recovery from narcissistic abuse and childhood wounds. And thank you so much, Christiana, for being here. And
thank you for having me.
Yeah, always a pleasure. And what's so nice is that Christiana made a great move from London, England, to the Caribbean. I really, really admire that. And now, instead of getting up at 3 or 4 in the morning and doing the show, she looks very bright and chipper, and there's only a 3-hour time difference. So yes. This is excellent. Yeah.
Exactly. And actually that makes it easier for me working with clients in the US as well.
I know. And I just want to say you look so fabulous and healthy. The sunshine is doing so much good. And
it's a great healer.
Yeah, I hope to come visit you in the Caribbean, and then we'll do our show from the island. How would you like that?
Well, you're going to have to hold yourself to that now, because the audience can hear. You've committed.
We'll make that happen. Okay. All right. And so thank you so much, audience. I know that many of you are familiar with me, the Psychological Healing Center, the Mind Map. And in case you aren't, please feel free to grab a free PDF copy of my book, Be the Cause, Healing Human Disconnect. And this will connect the dots for you from childhood wounds, deconstructing them, and reconstructing yourself in a way that is sustainable and healthy, and not based on a horrible blueprint of childhood that only creates chaos, defenses, and breakdowns. And so tonight's topic is, go ahead and announce it, because it was your great idea and I love it. So please go ahead.
Well, it's when the trauma bond is your safe place.
Quote, safe place.
Exactly, safe, yeah.
Okay, so what did you have in mind when you came up with this topic, and what did you want the audience to know about this subject?
Well, Dr. Judy, this really is such an important aspect of the narcissistic relationship to get our heads around.
Yeah,
it's crucial to understand this, because it forms the heart of the dependence upon a narcissist. Yes. And if we're not aware of this, we're going to be very much vulnerable to being lured into it. So just to start, I mean, if we think about those words, trauma and bond, we're talking here, what is trauma? And in the dictionary, the Oxford Dictionary says, it's a very disturbing or disturbing or distressing. That's it. Disturbing and distressing event or situation.
Yeah.
And the word bond is sort of glued to, it's attached to. So the trauma bond is about being bonded to trauma. It's being attached to a distressing event. And so when somebody is in this type of relationship, there's a call already.
Wow. Okay. Well, we'll incorporate your information into the call. So let's go ahead and take the call, and then you can elaborate further. And I just wanted to make a comment. And this is why Christiana is on the team, because she doesn't refer to the Webster's Dictionary. She refers to the Oxford Dictionary.
Other one. Yes.
I'll pick that up. Okay. Thank you so much for calling in. And what is the name that you wish to be called, please?
My name's Beverly.
Thank you, Beverly. Okay. And so, what moved you to make the call, and how do you relate to the topic?
Oh, I relate to the topic because I'm like a triple dungeon. I have your book. I've been listening to your show since about 2017.
Oh, thank you.
And Yeah, I believe that I definitely have a trauma bond because my life is completely stagnant. I just turned 60, never been married, no kids, have a fantastic talent. I'm a professional artist, but barely get by and have barely gotten by my whole life because of my inability to set goals, plan, believe in myself, form relationships because of this, we'll call it the trauma bond. So, should I tell you a little bit about my childhood?
Yes, please. And then I thought it would be a good idea for Christiana to contextualize what you're saying into more about the trauma bond, because you're right. You did call it accurately a triple dungeon of darkness, because you truly have no place to turn. You can't turn to yourself because babies are just not equipped to have the inner mechanisms to self-soothe, especially initially. Can't turn to your mother, you can't turn to your father, and then when you turn to your mother, it's not a good thing. It's a traumatic thing. So love that you called it the triple dungeon of darkness. So please,
Yeah.
share your story, and then
Okay.
and then Christiana, you can speak exactly to the trauma bond of Beverly. Yes.
Okay, thank you very much again for taking my call. Okay, so I grew up with two parents that were unhappy, angry, depressed mom. My mom adopted my sister because apparently she didn't think she could get pregnant, but she had me at 34, so I have an adopted sister. We were never close. She was an intellectual, excelled with school. I was an artist, very emotional and sensitive. We both grew up in the same house. She never married. She never had any long-term relationships. She never had any kids, but she did manage to have somewhat of a successful career, and we're not close at all. She left for college at 18. So at the age of 14, my dad had to have his first triple bypass. Heart disease ran in the family. It's a middle-class family, and my mother didn't work, so there's a lot of stress there to support the family. Often heard, who's going to take care of you? All that stuff. And just completely checked out because obviously he's going through a serious health problem. My mother, depressed, scared, checked out, and I basically learned how to curse from her. I thought my name was Dirty Rotten Bastard. You know what I mean? Yeah. So then at 19, I'm just giving you the highlights. At 19, ovarian cancer struck for my mom. My dad is now healed up from the heart disease. Now she's got ovarian cancer. Now they're fighting to kind of make a mortgage and raise two kids still, right? At 21, breast cancer for my mom. So now they're really going down the tubes financially. And my sister left for college at 18. When I say at 21, that this is the age that I was. Now, I didn't leave the house till 24 because I think I was still trying to find my parents, you know what I mean? And so at the age of 24, my dad had to have a second bypass surgery. And I had moved out then, and we were in the same town, and I would visit him once a week, but it was doom and gloom at the house, and all I ever heard is, you're never going to be anything, nobody's going to want you, you better give up that art. My sister wasn't around, and that was kind of it. And then when I was 29, colon cancer for my mom, and then that finally killed her when I was 30. And then my dad lived on till about 91, lived with my sister, and we're all kind of estranged. Now both parents are deceased. My sister and I barely talk, and I'm 60 years old with basically, you know, just limping along, a renter who has nothing, enough to live basically 30 more days, can't form relationships and never have been able to, didn't want kids because I thought they were a horrible thing. It made my parents unhappy. So that's kind of the real short version. Also a big drinker, I'll overeat food, smoke pot, gamble if you put a machine in front of me. That's kind of the short version.
The short version. Wow, the short, I can only imagine the long version because there's a lot there. And I'll just start, and then Christiana, you can elaborate. Whenever you hear of this kind of a dynamic of the kids are not getting anywhere, the first thought that comes to mind is that the parents suck the living daylights out of their children. And so who gets the supply are the parents, and what's left for the children? Nothing at all. And so when you're here at age 60 talking about the hole in the soul, which evidently was put there a long time ago, and now you're filling it with gambling or alcohol or what have you, and now you're also empty-handed. Christiana, maybe you can comment on this. It seems like she's been feeding for a long time these endless, bottomless pits of parents who have now completely depleted her. And why don't you go on and tie it in with the trauma bond?
Yeah. So Beverly, thank you for sharing about your experience there, your trauma, your attachment trauma, and there were a couple of things that you mentioned that really jumped out at me as kind of key features of the formation of the trauma bond in early infancy, in childhood. And one thing that you mentioned was that your mother was depressed, I think you said, checked out and angry.
Oh, yeah.
Does that sum her up?
Yeah, like would call a small child, like, you dirty, rotten bastard, you're no good, you're never going to be anything. And I mean, I'm like 7, 5, 8. What am I supposed to be, a CEO at a bank? I mean, it was just crazy.
You see, Beverly, the thing is, this trauma bond, what we're talking about here, the origins of it are actually in the first attachment, the first person you bonded to or tried to, and that would have been your mother. Now, the trauma bond, as I'm sure you're aware of, is the mother is actually the trauma. So the infant is trying to attach to a trauma figure, and your mother was trauma for you. So your natural instinct is to be in a relationship where the one that you're trying to attach to is the source of your pain, and the source of your pain becomes what you experience as love. Now, with a mother, and this is where it all stems from, if the mother is depressed, or she's narcissistic, or she's not well, or all of the above, the little infant has moments where mum does give it attention and maybe a little attunement, but then what happens is there are moments where she withdraws that. And so what's set up here then is an on-offness, withdrawal, comfort. And what we have there is then the origins of addiction, because the infant comes to be programmed that in order to regulate its emotions, it has to go through times of withdrawal, but then being loved. So it's these
intermittent reward, so to speak. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. Intermittent reinforcement. It is amazing. And you see, it also sets up a love addiction. Because you are traumatically bonded to your mother, there's a search for those feelings when she does give you attention.
That is so true. This is so true. Yes. Now I'm chuckling because I've never been able to have any long-term relationships with men, but I would, and of course I would get involved with the wrong men that weren't available, men that were players, and I would ruin the relationship before it even got a chance to start, because I'd scare them away because I wanted to be committed so soon. And boy, would I suffer. Oh my God, for months over someone I only dated a few times.
Yes, you probably would have found yourself going into a bit of fantasy almost, and obsession a bit, perhaps, over this.
Yes, exactly.
Because you see, that's what you're seeking. That infant is seeking the feeling of mum's love that is just so unpredictable, and it's here one minute and it's not the next. and you find actually, you know, the longer the gap, and this is the trauma bond when you're in a relationship with a narcissist, that gap between their love bombing you and then the withdrawal gets longer and longer, but it makes the love bombing more intense the longer the gap is every time. So that's
right. There's the intermittent reinforcement, right?
Yeah.
I did an episode called Molecules of Love. So the molecules of love get fewer and further between, but the toxic tie gets stronger and stronger until you're emotionally about to break, because on the one hand you're starving, but then on the other hand you're getting these little droplets, these little molecules of love, which tie you into the system even further. And Christiana, you made a great comment that this is her template for love. So then a man comes along, right? And so projected on the man is that he's going to somehow set it all straight. So the wish and desire are now disproportionate to who that human being is, because quite frankly, you don't really know the person, you have no history, but you do have a fantasy of who you need that person to be. And that could scare a person away too, because now they're taxed with this grand job of fulfilling
that they can never fulfill.
Yes.
Right? Can I ask a question?
Oh, sorry.
I just wanted to ask, because I feel like I've got an extra layer of trauma with all of their health problems and then them being verbally abusive to me. I mean, I feel like how, I'm thinking as a kid, well, how can you be mad at people that are dying? How can you be mad at people that are calling you a son of a bitch when they're dying? That's another layer. And then I go through my life never planning, setting goals, not succeeding, because I think deep down inside, I don't believe I deserve a thing.
That's
all
really
I wanted
good
to say.
point.
See your thoughts.
I wanted to bring up the concept of cognitive dissonance. Okay, cognitive dissonance says, I hate these people. They're disgusting. They're negative. They're depressed. They name call me. They're sucked dry by their illnesses. I hate to take care of them. But on the other hand, they are my parents. And how shame on me. How can I hate these people when they're dying?
Yep.
So that sets up a cognitive dissonance. So if we could take a moment and just integrate that for a minute, okay? Because I think that these ambivalent feelings are the hardest ones of all to integrate. It's easier to just say, I love you, I hate you, I want you, I don't want you, but it's not that clear cut, okay? And so that's also part of the trauma bond, is guilting and shaming yourself for having any negative feelings at all, and then not deserving any better because you're a really bad person.
There it is. Yeah. Yeah.
I hear it in clients quite a lot, actually. When they're in a trauma bonded relationship, we talk about sort of beginning to exit it, but the first thing they'll say is, oh, but I don't want to hurt them. I really don't want to displease them or disappoint them. And it's that kind of guilt, that toxic guilt, actually, that keeps people in those toxic bonds. It's a kind of misplaced
we were never
empathy.
Close, though. Yeah, but I mean, we were never close. Like, as far as like disappointing them, I just felt like I was a disappointment the minute I came out of the womb. But the thing is, my life, I never really amounted to much. I'm still struggling. They're now deceased, and I'm still sitting here going, wow, it's almost over, and it's too late, kind of. What do I do now, I guess, is kind of what I call you.
Okay, good question. You did mention that you thought your name was, and what were those words that you said? Like, oh, they called me blah, blah, and blah.
You're right, yeah.
What were those words?
Well, dirty, rotten bastard, a lot of things.
Dirty, rotten bastard. Okay, so this is part of the core belief system. Okay, so you're a dirty, rotten bastard. And do dirty, rotten bastards deserve anything? Are they going to amount to anything? Okay, so that this is what happens with children. We buy in to the core belief. It's not a logical thing. It's a psychological thing. And I play on the word psycho because it makes us psycho. So if your parents say that you're a dirty, rotten bastard, you're not thinking clearly and saying, wow, that's horrible parenting skills. What's wrong with them? You're thinking, I'm a dirty, rotten bastard. So you're identifying with it, not identifying it. So in congruence, you live your life low down, dirty, rotten, bastard, alone. Okay. And then that's in essence the blueprint. So you asked a great question. So how do I get out of this? So one of the things that I enjoy doing is busting the old system gone wrong by identifying the lies and the misperceptions and misconceptions and sourcing them back to the cause. So logically, just because your parents told you who you were being, does that actually mean that that's who you are?
Well, logically, I know it's not, but I'm still just stuck. I feel like, I don't know.
Okay, and there it is. There's the trap. Okay, there's the trauma bond. So now you're trauma bonded to the person who calls you dirty, rotten bastard. You see, if you were in a theoretically healthy place, if some stranger came up to you and said dirty, rotten bastard, and you were in a healthy place, you'd say, nice to not meet you. Bye. Okay. But these are your parents and you bought into it. And so now it's like, what? I'm a dirty, rotten bastard. And my very own parents think this, and we self-define in the eyes of our parents. And so there's the trap, because we're self-defining in the eyes of our parents. And if those are the eyes reflecting back to us, there's your double dungeon or triple dungeon or however deep it goes. Dungeon. It's a dungeon. Okay. Do you see? You're checkmated.
And the thing is, when we have narcissistic parents, what happens is the aim of every narcissist actually is to take over the internal world of the abused, so that they've got to take over the way you speak to yourself. They've got to take charge of you from within you. That's it. And that's why you have these repetition of these messages coming to you, because that is going to destroy your confidence, your independence, and your own sense of connection to your authentic self, because that's what they don't have. And this is what leads you, once they've left your life, it's like, who am I? What have these last years been about? Where do I go now?
I just want to say we have another caller, but you see, let's do step number one, okay, Beverly? Identifying it, not with it. So now you know that it came from an outside source. I call it dirty data. It's horrible data. So if you're a computer programmer, are you going to take terrible data to input it and then generate good results? Of course not. So this is horrible data that got incorporated, and now you've got horrible results. So just stay with this. Please feel free to keep in touch with Christiana or myself, the Psychological Healing Center. We'll take the next call, and I hope that you learned something tonight.
Yes, thank you so much for your time, ladies. I appreciate it, and thank you for the work you do so much. Have a great evening. Thank you.
Thank you. You too.
Thanks, Kevin.
Okay, so along the lines of the trauma bond and your safe place, in quotes, and thank you. I hope you're still on the line. What name would you like me to call you?
You can call me Shauna.
Shauna, thank you so much for calling in. And so how do you identify with this topic? And do you have any particular thoughts or questions?
Yeah, I appreciate you guys speaking on this topic. I definitely relate to it a lot. For me, I have been in a healing process for the last year of separating myself from my family, a specific side of my family, and specifically my dad, who was showing up as a narcissist in my life. And now I'm just kind of going through the process and kind of struggling with being able to share my story without letting that trauma bond affect how I see myself. So it's kind of like every time I try to share, or I'm putting my memories together, writing down things, I also don't remember a lot of things. I feel like I've blacked out a lot of things, I guess, or if it has to do with the person, like my dad or something like that, it's like a part of me is trying to protect that person without giving myself the full ability to just be myself.
Oh, okay. And this is, again, going back to cognitive dissonance. Imagine telling a story. Once upon a time, there was a wonderful, wonderful daddy, and he was so great. He used to buy me ice cream cones and take me to the park. And then he also called me a stupid loser. Do you see how those things don't exactly go together? And so in order to create a congruent story, you pick one or the other, okay? And so it's unintegrated. So it's hard to say the same person who bought me ice cream and took me to the park and gave me a great day also called me a stupid loser. They just somehow, they really, those two concepts don't fit together, and they mess with our head. And so by virtue of the fact that trauma is traumatic, right? I think that's a redundant statement right there. But what it does is it also wipes out memories. People don't like to remember things that that are upsetting to them. So what do? They will dissociate from it. They'll forget. They'll leave gaps in the story. And a healthy human psyche is able to integrate things. Does that make sense?
Yes, yeah.
Shauna,
that makes a lot of sense.
It can also be, sometimes I find, when we sit down as the sort of abused in an abusive relationship, that the underlying belief that we're groomed to take on is that we are actually the problem. That if we had been better, then I wouldn't have been abused. So there can be some hesitancy sometimes in speaking your truth, because in the back of your mind is that voice saying, well, is that true? Couldn't you have been better? So I don't know if that resonates with you as well as a bit of perhaps the resistance.
Yeah, that resonates with me a lot, because just growing up and stuff like that, after a while, I ended up diving into alcohol and smoking weed and like really trying to drown out myself, like feeling like I couldn't really connect to my identity. And now I'm no longer in those addictions, and I'm in a healthy relationship now. I'm married, and
Beautiful.
I wake up sometimes feeling like I did something wrong. And then I'm like, oh yeah, I'm okay, like nothing happened. So I feel like that's something that's like underlying still, I guess, like inside, it feels like it's inside of my body, like this thing saying you did something wrong. So yeah.
Yes, and that's where it starts. It starts in infancy, where the child believes that mummy's withdrawn her love because of it. It's something that they've done that's made her, abandon them or not return the love. And the infant's trying desperately to get that love back, but it believes that it's the problem, not the mother or the father.
Because you see, we're always trying to preserve the good of the mother or the parent. Very, very, very painful to not have some level of idealization of the parent, because that's supposed to be your world. That parent is your source. And so, of course, it's a great source. What little girl or little boy wants to think that there's something wrong with their mommy, there's something wrong with their daddy? Maybe later on they discover it to be so, but at the beginning, children are very, very invested in the good mother and the good father. And anything outside of the good mother and the good father makes them wrong. Okay, so do you see the splitting there? If your mother's not good, it's all your fault. And so you've done something wrong. So here you are happily married, and the memories come back that you were called this name or that name or treated this way and that way. And then you think, must have done something wrong. What a creepy feeling. It's still there. And you know, it's sort of haunting you today. So until
it's an emotional flashback, isn't it? Part of CPTSD, actually.
Yeah, I think so. So it's kind of like I have to, I guess, remind myself or accept that, hey, this person was like, they were negative in my life, they were abusive, so that I don't have like the cognitive dissonance. Is that what you guys are saying, critic?
Yeah. So you align it. So I think the best pathway to healing is truth. The truth is, yes, they did say those things. Yes, they did treat me like that. Yes, they were nice at times. And yes, they mixed their nice with their abuse. And that really tied me to the toxic bond. The safe space now became a toxic space, but it's the only space you knew. You didn't have a spare tire mother or father. That's it.
Wow. Yeah, thank you guys so much. I think it's just what you guys were saying, like having the negative, seeing how they could like gaslight me and manipulate me to do the things that he wanted me to do, and then seeing that, oh, but this person took care of me, this person helped me out, they did so many nice things, and it's kind of like, how do I understand both at the same time? But it's kind of like it's true, just kind of accepting that both can be true at the same time.
That's it.
Yes, Shana. Because you know the key thing of being in relationship with a narcissist is that their aim is to keep you in confusion, because that's what makes you the most vulnerable to stay, and that's what you're experiencing at times. You're like, oh, but hang on, no, he was quite nice at some points. Maybe it was just, you know, he just had these angry outbursts or whatever, you know. But no, this was all part of the in-training of you.
Think about confusion. Think about panel 4, which is chaos. Okay, so if you have a three-legged stool and one is weak, it's not sustainable. You sit on it and it falls apart. You know, right? Okay, so the more confused you are, the more destabilized you are, and the more manipulatable you are. You see that? Okay, so if you set your mind in a line with the truth, you're not manipulatable.
And also with a narcissist, you know, they are not a little bit false; they are all false. So the bad dad and the good dad, they're all part of the false image. They're all part of that falseness. So it's not that you're seeing, oh, the truth of your dad when he's really lovely.
Oh, great.
And then
great point.
It's actually all one falsity.
To destabilize you. Okay, so you never know which side of that
Jekyll and Hyde.
Yeah, the stool you're sitting on. Are you sitting on the solid part of it, or are you sitting on the part that's gonna collapse under you? And this is how, again, it weakens you, confuses you, destabilizes you. And now you're good fodder for manipulation.
Yeah, that's so good. I'm gonna listen to the replay again and just take in everything. So
okay,
that's really helpful.
You're very welcome. And yes, I think the replay is a good button to push, because these are hard concepts. Because remember, you've been thinking a certain way, and now what Christiana and I are doing tonight is we're rocking the system that you bought into, and we're actually taking it down. Okay, we're destabilizing, or rather taking down an unstable system so that you can build it back up properly. So yeah, do replay it, do listen to the truth, and wrap your head around the truth. And I think that that's the most healing thing any human being can do.
Yes. Wow. Thank you, Dr. Judy and Christina, so much. Guys, have a great night.
Pleasure, Sean.
Our pleasure. Thank you.
Take care.
These are such great questions, aren't they?
They are.
And whenever people ask these great questions, I'm always challenged to look at things a little bit differently and learn. And that's what you can all do. You know, you're all asking questions of yourselves and of your professionals and so on. And the more you question these things, the more you can sort through it, because it's not like you first saw it to begin with. Remember what a paradigm shift is. I'm referring for a moment to panel number 7, the paradigm shift. It's a new way of seeing and a new way of being. And if you're stuck in your old way of seeing, then you're going to be trauma bonded. You're stuck, double dungeon of darkness. However, if you shift your lens of perception, then you become clear-sighted, and you see truths that you didn't think were within your periphery of vision.
And the thing is about these, you know, that way of seeing that's sort of we take on in childhood, the way of understanding attachment to somebody else, connection with somebody else, love, is that we end up in the repetition compulsion. You know, there's that drive in us to seek out other people who are unattachable to, in order to sort of replay that failed attachment, to play it out again so that we can somehow become securely attached. But the thing is, it's like the abused goes to the abuser looking for the solution. And, you know, you've said this many times before, Dr. Judy, in your videos, you know, that this is it's an endless cycle until we see it, until we're able to get the courage to decide, hang on a second, I can't, my life is on the line here.
Right.
You know, because it literally is, actually. It's like a spider's web, this trauma bond. It's like the black widow spider in the middle, and you get lured in, and you know, slowly you put one foot in, and then you're stuck, and then the next foot. And before you know it, you've got this cocoon that's been spun round you, and you're paralyzed. And it's kind of like it is like an intoxicating paralyzedness. Because on the one hand, you've got that sort of addiction element, and addiction is so powerful, and this bond, the trauma bond, you know, some psychologists say it's actually more powerful, more enticing than the attachment to mother, between mother and child, because it meets so many other needs. So this lure to be in the bond is overpowering. But when you do, and it often takes quite some time, but when you do get the sort of courage to begin to step away from it, you then realize, oh my goodness, you know, thank God I exited when I did, because some people don't. They end up, sucked dry, and that's their life gone.
And that's that cycle of violence. And that's why, and I encourage everybody to watch this particular episode that I did called The Herder Can't Be the Healer. And that's the true definition of the what the Freud. You go into the spider web, hoping that you're going to have better results and hoping that the very person that hurt you, that you're, quote, in love with, meaning in addiction with, is going to do a better job and finally give you everything that you've been dying for, all the love, all the recognition, all
endless love.
And endless love. You even have songs like Endless Love. Okay, so we're obsessed with Prince Charming getting us out of the hot mess and kissing us and reviving our last breath and so on. Okay, so
is that not going to happen, Dr. Judy?
I don't know. I mean, haven't you tried it a couple of times? I don't know.
This is so depressing.
So depressing, right? We've got to rewrite some of these fairy tales. But with Halloween coming, I was kind of kidding around before the show with Christiana. It's sort of like the Hansel and Gretel cage. Come, little children, do you want some candy? And come. And let's skip and hop over to the witch's little.
You can trust me.
You can trust me. It's candy, And then boom, the cage locks. And then you still have hope that the witch is a nice witch. That you were wrong. She's just kidding, or she'll let you free after all. And the story's always the same. Who gets freed? Nobody gets freed from the witch's cage, right? No, it doesn't happen. Okay, so I hope that everyone is learning something, and that you're learning most profoundly so that no matter how many times you do the what the Freud, no matter how many times you go in hoping for better results, there aren't any better results. It's always the same results. And then it's you that decompensates. It's you that gets sicker and sicker and weaker and more depleted. And that's what I mean by the vampiring effect. It's never good. It's never going to gain you anything. It's always a loss. Always.
And you kind of know when you're in a toxic bond, you kind of know when you're in a trauma bond, even at the beginning, there's just something. It's like your body might just give you a bit of an uneasy feeling, but you go with it anyway because you want that love bombing. You want all that. You want the excitement. You want the being caught up in another person.
Right.
And
just right when you're about to kind of see it and let on, the person will love bomb you. Okay.
Yes.
And they'll say something to keep you invested. They never follow through, but they'll say, well, what's that term? I'm blanking on it. Where kind of like promise.
Future faking.
Thank you. That's exactly what I was thinking. Future.
We're on the same page.
Yeah, we're totally on the same page. So here's the carrot, and don't worry, honey. The future is coming soon. Oh, I just have a little bit more to run in the race and then I'll get it. And then you're really close up and then, oh, sweetheart, I can't get you the ring this month. I'm about to make a big deal and I've got to invest a little bit more money in our business, because when we hit the jackpot on this, then we're going to be able to afford that beautiful house that we've had our eye on. And then it's yay, he's on my team. And look what a hero he is.
It's so painful.
It's so
because right? Because you see, it's actually what this is about. It's one-sided love addiction.
Correct.
The narcissist is not wanting to bond with you. Nope. The narcissist is not dreaming of you. The narcissist is not in love with you. And it's the most painful thing to experience because they've been love bombing you and you think, gosh, this is real. It's not. They couldn't. They really don't.
There's
they really are not.
There's a horrible joke. I'll say it. I'm infamous for repeating horrible jokes, but here it is. Okay. So what's the difference between the bacon and the egg?
Not sure.
Okay. So in the case of the egg, the chicken was involved. In the case of the pig, in the bacon, the pig had to give his life.
Yes.
Okay, so
yes.
That's what I'm trying to say, is that in the case of the narcissist, they're involved, they're laying the eggs, but you're the one that's laying down your lifeblood. Okay.
Yes, this is the allure of the trauma bond. It's unrequited love. This is the trauma of it. Unrequited love, and that's what keeps us coming back for some reason. It's so powerful.
Salt and peppered with, well, of course I can't give you the ring. You've gained too much weight and you're getting old. And remember, you didn't keep your promise to lend me that money. And so now the manipulation and the control, now it's all your fault that you're not getting the prize, because it's you that messed up the deal. So it's manipulation, control versus love and intimacy. No partnership, and always moving the target. Always, what do you call it? It's called the, I always blank on it, future faking.
Future faking.
Yes, and you can do that for a long time.
So Dr. Judy, just back on the reason why people find that this trauma bond is their safe space. Why do they stay in it? And I kind of think there's 3 reasons. You may think there's more, or have something to add.
Yeah, go ahead.
But, I say because it's familiar, like we've been talking about.
That was my first thought. We're on the same page. It's familiar, yes. And it's familial.
There you go. Exactly. Okay. That's the cause of it. Then the second reason is because the person confuses it with love.
Yes.
And we're all searching for love. So there's a confusion. There's they've been deceived that this is love.
And love shouldn't be a bunch of tension.
It's a deception.
It's not, love isn't potential. Love isn't tension. Love is synergistic. It's a feedback loop, and it's comfortable.
Yes.
And with
yes, it's not up and down, huge highs and lows. And no. And then the third one that I said is that people don't believe they can have anything more or anything better than that.
There it is. Parents set the bar. And if the bar is a trauma bond, then that's, again, back to familiar, back to familial, and the low bar. And they keep repeating.
It's better than nothing.
Better than nothing. And then again, with beliefs like I'm not good enough, I'm not worth it, I'm not special, I'm not lovable. Of course, this is all I could get. Better than nothing.
And there's another thing as well. You see, because narcissistic parents are the stars of the show, and we are there as children to serve their agenda, there is a natural sort of inclination within us that we don't feel safe unless somebody else is dominant in our lives. We're kind of all at sea when it's just us. We almost need somebody to be regulating our emotions for us.
Very good point.
Controlling our emotions, telling us when we can be happy, when we're sad. Because when we're on our own, it's a scary place.
And you're bringing in another element that sometimes control and power feel like strength. So let's not confuse strength with manipulation. Okay, let's draw a distinction.
Yeah.
Strength is supposed to make you a better person. Manipulation is supposed to make them the better person. That's not strength.
And, and just another aside to this is, it doesn't have to only be in a family relationship or in a romantic one. It can also be in friendship. This plays into friendships as well. You can be drawn into a trauma bond with a friend. So you might want to ask yourself, if you were to sit down and, hazard a guess, who do you think you might be in a trauma bond with? I think that's something to really ask yourself sometimes, because we can try to deny it ourselves. We can try to justify it because we so want it to be that fantasy that we're looking for. We don't want to let go of it because it is an addiction as well.
Right.
So we can,
and also by habit, we don't want to let go of friendships that are 10, 20, 30 plus years old. And so we'll just keep it going. But some of the signs are very physical. If your body is tweaking out, if you get neck aches, back aches, headaches, stomach aches, if you feel drained, physically drained by being around your friend, if they're talking about themselves and not including you, if you get a semblance that they're not too happy when you succeed, these are signs. Okay,
say no.
Right? This is the narcissistic system, is that I get to be glorious, and if you're glorious, well, there's no room for two glorious people in the same room, so one of us has to go. Okay,
exactly.
Right, and that's where the demean, the devalue, and the destroy and the discard come in. Yeah.
So what do we do? How do we extricate ourselves from these trauma bonds if we are in one?
Study this material, rewind the tape, play it over and over and over again until you get your head straight. Okay, and then
that's step one.
Step one, and then I think if you're deep in it, it's really important to get treatment, because look, I'm not a brain surgeon. If I needed brain surgery, I'm not going to go and sterilize my own equipment and start digging around in my own head. I'm going to get the best expert possible to do the job. And so we do need an outside force to see straight and think straight and give us clarity and present us with a map, in this case, a mind map, to identify the childhood wounds, the reactions, the trauma of the amygdala reactions, and these horrible encodings, and then how it all double dungeoned upon itself, and then how to break free. So I wouldn't fool too much around with this, because you're just losing years of your life.
Yes. I mean, the longer you stay, you're going to be more sucked in.
Yeah. And then like Beverly said, like here I am at age 60 and I'm not doing well. Remember, and people will say, well, I can't afford therapy. No, you can't afford not to have therapy.
Not to have therapy.
Because if your mental health is suffering, you're not going to get very far. And your mental health is going to affect your pocketbook. Because if you don't feel like you're good enough, and you feel like you're at the effect of, and you're being drained, that's not helping your money-making situation at all. And I do see this, the healthier people get, the more successful they get, the more financially viable they get, the more emotionally viable they get.
And that's important, because you see, the way we come out of these trauma bonds, really, what the trauma bond is about is making you dependent. It's isolating you, and it's getting you to be sucked in to the narcissist world, so that you can only see through his eyes. You can only see him. It's all about him. And so the way that we need to begin freeing ourselves, and it's not easy for people sometimes, is actually to say, okay, right, I need to now not have one person as the center of my world. I need to now make connections and foster connections with other people, so that I'm splitting my dependence in that way. And that's really key, actually, is turning our attention and energy away from that one person and beginning to invest in it elsewhere, because that's what they don't want.
They don't, because really this is, I define narcissism as a system gone wrong, where the parents put their own needs before the child and then enlist the child in providing for their own needs. Okay. So
Absolutely.
now you turn it around by understanding that and then start fulfilling on your own needs. So you've got to turn it around 180 degrees.
And it's not easy, but it's so, you know, once you start, momentum starts.
Absolutely. And
it becomes easier.
Most of you know that you can seek treatment with Christiana. She's really an excellent therapist. She's seen a lot of people on the team, and you can reach out to the Psychological Healing Center, and you can have a free consultation with Christiana or me or any other member on the team. So we're all available to you. And so there's just no reason not to, really. So with that said, I want to thank you so much for being on the show, and thank you, audience, for being available and open to learning and growing and seeing straight, and allowing us to confront the system gone wrong so that you're not trapped in this toxic bond of double and triple dungeons, and it's time to set free. So thank you very, very much, everyone, and Christiana for joining in, and we'll see you next time. Good night, everyone.